Don't Starve has a very colorful cast of playable characters, as all good games do. And originally, I was going to make this video about these characters' morality, it's why the thumbnail's like that, but after getting halfway through the script for this video, I realized Clay made it pretty painfully obvious where their characters stand on the morality scale. So I decided to sort of lump it all together in a full personality analysis of each and every character. Yes, including single player. All the DLCs and Don't Starve together. For this video, I will be using a well-known personality measurement system known as the Myers-Briggs scale. Not only that, but I will also be including a morality meter like I originally intended this video to be solely about. Yeah, you guys are getting 2 lore/theory videos in one with this one. Anyways, let's first do a small crash course on what the Myers-Briggs personality scale is, and then we will begin. If you already understand this scale, skip to this time on screen now to go right into the list. Anyways, now that the nerds are gone, let me teach you about this wonderful graph. To put it simply, the Myers-Briggs scale looks for 4 derivatives and plants you accordingly with their abbreviations. First, it looks at your energy. This is whether you are extroverted or introverted. Contrary to popular belief, there's a lot more that goes into being extroverted and introverted than just people skills. If we were going on people skills alone, then all of the survivors would be extroverted thanks to their bond. Rather, extroverts will be those with high energy, who are very active, or very expressive with their emotions and are positive. While introverts will be those with low energy, contained, quiet, or even pessimistic. If a survivor is an extrovert, they will gain an E on their personality type, and if they are introverted, they will gain an I on their personality type. Next up, the scale looks at how they process information. Are they a very down-to-earth person who doesn't tend to like change and is more fearful of taking leaps? Then they will gain an S on their personality type. Contrary, if they are a very imaginative person who enjoys change and is creative all around, they will be considered intuitive and gain an N on their personality type instead. Next, the scale looks at how the survivor makes their decisions. Are their decisions spearheaded by facts and logic? Then they get a T on their personality type as they are considered thinkers. Or on the contrary, do they base their decisions on emotions and feelings? If so, then they will instead be considered a feeling person, gaining an F on their personality type. And finally, the scale also takes into account their lifestyle. Are they a strict person who's very methodical? Then they will be considered judging, gaining a J on their personality type. Contrary, are they a very laid-back and casual person? Well, then they'll be considered perceiving and gain a P on their personality type. There are 16 total personality combos in this setup, and I'll give you some examples before I send you off into the video. Someone who is ENFJ is extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. They have high energy, aim for the stars, make their decisions based on emotions, and are very strict, or somewhat strict, at least strict enough to have a J on their scale. Is it making sense? Hopefully. Otherwise, unfortunately, this video may be a little hard to follow. I know it's complex, but it is the only way to study the survivors' personalities in depth. And it sounds a hell of a lot better than just exclaiming the obvious surface level stuff, like Winona being a strong woman, or Walani being a lazy surfer. Anyways, now that you've been properly informed, hopefully, let's begin. Starting with Wilson. Wilson's personality is that of a stereotypical mad scientist. Except unlike another scientist type we'll be covering soon, Wilson is a complete and utter failure. He blew up his college, conducted tests on animals, and his one and only success in the real world is actually something that would be attributed to Maxwell. In The Constant, he appeared to grow as a scientist though, with almost all of the main scientific machines being attributed to him and him alone. Wilson's personality type is ENTP. He's extroverted, intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. To put it simply, he's a man of science, or well, he believes himself to be. Unfortunately, this love for science is a lazy one, as he tends to make a lot of mistakes, which does put some people in danger sometimes. Speaking of danger, it's time for the easier thing to rank Wilson on, his morality. Wilson's a very kind person within The Constant, but unfortunately, kindness does not fix his wrongdoings in his past life. He not only blew up his college, but it's also suggested that he fled the bill. He's been shown to test on animals multiple times, in not only his animated short, but also his literal character select image. Now, animal testing is a highly debated topic, but he doesn't seem to have much care for the animals in question, does he? Overall, Wilson is definitely not the most morally evil character on this list, but he's certainly a step down from being morally gray. Yes, he did canonically invent most of the machines in the Constant, and yes, he's partially responsible for Don't Starve Together's storyline, but his overconfidence and reckless regard for safety in the name of science is a huge red flag. Hell, if he was successful, I feel like he would just be Wagstaff 2.0. Sometimes our failures are what humble us. Next up, we have Willow. A batshit crazy pyromaniac who quite literally doesn't care about really anything other than fire. Seriously, that's her whole personality. She escaped from an orphanage when she was young and then proceeded to just burn places down because a scary monster told her to. Yeah, she's lucky she's in the Constant now, because she would not see the light of day if the justice system caught up to her in the real world. Willow's personality type is ENFP. She's incredibly high energy, as attributed by her many expressive quotes and actions. She is very imaginative, I don't think this needs much explaining, and she makes decisions based on her feelings. Like the whole blowing up thing, which occurred after she was locked in the storage shed by her caretakers. And before one of you says, oh, but like, wouldn't breaking out have been the logical thing to do? No, buddy, she straight up blew up the entire building. There were no thoughts behind those eyes at all, just rage. And finally, she's incredibly casual and spontaneous. This goes hand in hand with her emotion-based decision-making to give her a dangerous combo. Now on to the morality scale. Yeah, it's no surprise here, she's going straight to the comically evil side of the scale. We already went over her orphanage situation, but did I mention she burned down Wickerbottom's library as well? Yeah, she not only has 2 confirmed murders under her belt, but also 2 arsons. Now, I don't think I have to say this, but arson is bad, okay? Still, we have to factor in that she was probably not in a good mental state, and she probably still isn't in a good mental state. She really just needs a lot of psychiatric help, honestly. So I'll refrain from giving her the highest tier of evil. Next up, we have Wolfgang, the fake strongman who only wants to be loved and appreciated by everyone. Oh yeah, and he's, like, comedically dumb as well. Stereotypical jock style. But unlike a stereotypical jock, Wolfgang is probably one of the sweetest people you could ever meet. Wolfgang's personality type is ISFJ. I think he's introverted primarily because based on his quotes and actions within his shorts, he's very reserved and somewhat timid. He's also incredibly down to earth and is probably the only normal person in the Constant because, yeah, I'd be afraid of everything too in a world that's out to get me like that. He bases his decisions on his emotions, like how he got fearful of the mouse and ruined his entire image, all because of that rash decision, and he's also very strict. Not with others, but with himself. He's shown to dislike change and gets scared easier than the others, most likely preferring the normalcy of the regular world. Now let's talk about Wolfgang's morality. While he is a genuinely very kind person in the cinematics he's a part of, you know, saving Maxwell's life and all, we also do have to remember that he was willingly part of a scam circus. He was just as morally liable for conning those circus guests as all of the other ones. All in all though, I think he's a good-natured rascal. We all know he's not exactly that intelligent, so the scam circus he was a part of could have been taking advantage of that. I'm gonna put him right about here. I believe he truly wants to do good, just based on how he talks and interacts with everybody. And I think that more than makes up for his days of potentially willing deceit. Next up, we have Wendy, a very depressive 10-year-old who somehow found herself in one of the most hellish survival situations with a dead sister. Seriously, she was dealt a very bad hand in life. Yeah, I know the whole respawning thing is canon in the Constant, so the danger level is theoretically way lower than it would be in the real world, but geez, man, I feel bad for this character. Wendy's personality type is ISTJ. She's incredibly low energy and depressive, she's down to earth and doesn't seem all that motivated to, you know, reach for the stars as some would put it, and I think her decisions are based more on logic than emotion. She's very stone cold about a lot of things within the Constant, taking a more realist stance on most things. And finally, she appears to be very reserved and not as open to change. She's certainly not ready to let Abigail go. Her morality alignment is a bit harder to judge though. We have to assume that without any good or evil deeds, Wendy is a completely blank and morally gray slate. Lore-wise, she isn't really responsible for any morally correct or morally incorrect decisions, and yeah, her quote suggests that she is a very bleak person, and she kinda sees herself as a more evil character, but just having a bad attitude doesn't make someone evil. It's their actions or inactions that do. Wendy also shows a lot of compassion towards her sister, expressing genuine mental strain as shown in game when her sister is hurt. And all of her interactions with the other survivors are pretty wholesome. Wendy is, I believe, morally gray with a slight nudge towards good. I believe she genuinely wants to do the right thing. She's just, severely depressed. Understandably, given her circumstances. Next up is WX78, and oh man, do they deserve a full case study. So, as we all know, they are a soulless automaton that used to be human at one point, but was betrayed by their scientific partner and left to rot in the constant. All of these actions have made WX see organic life as lesser. WX78's personality type is ENTJ. Alright, hear me out. First off, WX is incredibly expressive. One of the most expressive characters on this list even. So extrovert makes the most sense given this context. As for intuitive, well, they quite literally dream big, so to say. They imagine a world where those yucky organics that aren't their friends no longer exist and wish to aim for that. WX also uses cold logic to base most of their thoughts around, leaving little room for any feeling except hate and anger. Human, illogical emotions, yes, but not the centerpiece of their decision-making capabilities. And finally, yeah, I don't think I need to explain the whole judging part. When it comes down to morals, WX is definitely on the evil side. First up, they were Wagstaff's assistant. Now, we don't exactly know what they were testing, but knowing Wagstaff, it probably was something super evil and messed up. Yes, it's true that eventually WX did snap and turn on Wagstaff, which would have been a morally good thing to do, but we have to account for their time under their wing as well. Not only that, but WX is straight up a jerk to most of the other members of the Constant. Hell, they even openly admit they wish to join forces with the Moon against them. Though this is most likely a joke. WX does in fact show some levels of camaraderie with their fellow survivors, but I would say they land themselves here morally. They just aren't nice and have a dodgy past. Next up we have Wickerbottom, the know-it-all librarian with a soft spot. Her backstory is a tragic one that includes some morally questionable decisions, but we'll get to that when we do. Anyways, Wickerbottom's personality type is ISTJ. The same as Wendy's, but for a different reason. Wickerbottom is very reserved, takes in all information as it's given to her, very clearly bases all of her decisions on facts and logic because she's quite literally a walking encyclopedia, and finally, she's a pretty systematic person. Not even open to the idea of shutting her eyes and going to bed, and is fearful of her old age. I will make an add-on to this segment though and say that there are some emotions behind Wickerbottom's actions, because we know that she is Wirt's mentor. When it comes to morality, many people suggest that she helps Wirt read her books and is currently teaching her how to speak properly. And I personally believe this theory due to how they interact. There is 100% a mentor and student relationship going on there. Being a teacher just for the love of sharing knowledge is universally recognized as a morally good action. Wickerbottom's past is weird, like why the hell does she have a willow doll in her secret library? But other than that questionable thing, nothing really suggests that she was morally evil. I would safely say Wickerbottom is right about here on the morality scale. Next up we have Woody, the insane lumberjack who also just turns into a ravenous beast sometimes. Oh, and how could I forget his intense hatred for birds? Woody's personality type is ISFP. He's not one to share much and tends to be so reserved that we never see him in any of the animations. Seriously, I don't think we've seen him that much at all. His viewpoint is very down to earth, being a survivalist and rugged outdoorsman stereotype. He makes his decisions casually and based on emotion rather than logic. And finally, he's a pretty spontaneous guy, totally not because he just becomes an animal when he feels like it or anything. Morality, however, is something that Woody is lacking. Unfortunately. The only Woody lore we have doesn't shed him in a very good light. Walter's campfire story tells of Woody being this evil lumber tycoon who gave the order to deforest an area against the wishes of its residents, and that it's even the reason he's cursed. Now, why should we trust a child with probably an overactive imagination? Remember, Walter was the one hunting down Woody, so I think it's credible. At least it's the most credible thing we have right now. So sorry, Woody, but due to this being the only lore we really have on you, I gotta say you're rather evil. Next up, we have Wes, the silent mime. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Wes. He can't speak, which makes understanding his personality limited. The problem is, I can't exactly give him a personality ranking if we don't have much to go on. He doesn't talk, and we only see a little bit of his backstory thanks to his short. I like to think of Wes as a morally good person though. Even if he's only accidentally saving people from their fates, it's still selfless. Next up, we have Maxwell. And oh boy, does this guy have some lore. Being the main antagonist of Don't Starve, single player, not together, he has a ton of intricate and intense lore. From being a debt dodger to literally blowing up San Francisco, Maxwell's done a lot. Maxwell's personality type is INTJ. He's reserved when it comes to anything except his work, making his distaste for companionship of others incredibly noticeable. He aims for the stars, as shown with his entire career as a magician, a very abnormal and imaginative career choice, and he's also shown to be relatively smart when it comes to his decision-making skills. But he's still easily fooled, and you are out of your mind if you think this man has a shred of empathy. He straight up kidnapped all of these people pretty much for fun. The only reason I believe he worked with Wilson to make the portal to connect the survivors together was out of survival instinct, not genuine compassion. As for morality, yeah, no, he's very, very evil. I don't care what you say, there's not a good bone in this man's entire body. He's responsible for the San Francisco earthquakes, and he's responsible for kidnapping almost every single character on this list. Most of them would be chilling at home right now if it wasn't for him. Yes, sure, some came willingly, but others were conned. And need I mention that he's the one who ripped Worley away from his mother who has dementia? Yeah, no, straight to maximum evil with this one. I would rather be in a room with Willow than with him. At least she would probably just light me on fire or something. This guy is just a conniving freakazoid who lives in a hell of his own creation, and somehow everyone just forgave him. Like, they all would have been justified for jumping him as soon as they arrived in the world of Don't Starve together. Weird. Anyways, rant aside, I really like his character. Media lately has grown a weird taste for morally gray villains, so it's nice to have some villains that are just pure evil. Next up, we have Wigfrid, the battle Valkyrie who has taken a suspicious liking to her role, and who used to be simply an actress living vicariously through her part in plays. Wigfrid's personality type is ENFJ. She's incredibly expressive and high energy, has an obvious taste and drive for success, makes rash decisions based on her feelings, you know, that being of her warrior nature, and of course, she's very strict. Not breaking character for anyone, not even her own survival. She won't even eat veggies. I mean, this all can't be a bit anymore due to how long it's gone on, so it's definitely part of her personality. As for morality, well, Wigfrid actually doesn't give us a lot to go on. She wasn't particularly evil in her past life, she was just an actress who longed for true battle. And in The Constant, she's shown a high level of camaraderie towards her fellow survivors. Now, sure, one could argue that her particularly aggressive attitude towards the denizens of The Constant may be a bit morally questionable, but most of the things there are out to harm her and her friends, so I feel as though it's justified. Regardless, I'm gonna put Wigfrid here. She's a relatively blank slate. Next up, we have Weber. A tragic tale of what happens when a spider and boy become fused thanks to constant magic, or whatever you call this weird purple stuff that we see occasionally is. Weber's personality type is INFP. He's mostly reserved, especially because he's seen as a monster within the Constant, though he has been shown to get along with the other survivors. He does appear to be timid thanks to his quotes, citing that people wouldn't understand them, referring to him and his spider. Of course, being a child, Weber still dreams big though. But he hasn't had his dreams hopelessly crushed like Windy. Also, as a child, he most likely makes most of his decisions based on emotions, but he appears to be open to options presented to him. Morality-wise, Weber is actually pretty morally gray. Yeah, we could say that him breaking into his father's study was a morally incorrect thing to do, but that's like throwing a kid in jail for stealing a candy bar. It doesn't make all that much sense. Other than that, Weber has been shown to be kind in whatever shorts he's been a part of, and of course, he gets along with the other kid characters. So we'll shift him slightly higher on the morality meter because otherwise he's really just a normal kid who was dealt a pretty awful hand. Next up, we have Winona, the Rosie the Riveter of the Constant, a hard worker with a can-do attitude. Winona's personality type is ESTP. She has very high energy and is actively willing to take matters into her own hands. At the same time, she's a realist, only creating machinery she knows she's capable of, unlike someone else. But she's open to the idea of broadening her horizons occasionally in the name of progress, or saving her sister, who happens to be like one of the two pseudo-antagonists of the game. Yeah, crazy stuff. As for morality, well, I see absolutely no reason why we should put her on the evil side of the scale. All of her actions have been relatively selfless. Hell, she even went on this wild goose chase primarily to rescue her own sister. That's more than most people would do for their sibling. So yeah, Winona's a very good person. Next up, we have Walter. Another child character, so ranking him is more difficult due to the fact that children are just different from adults naturally. But he's a very interesting one. A Boy Scout who's absolutely fearless, until he gets hurt that is. Yeah, he's very prone to reality checks. Walter's personality type is ENTP. High energy and high imagination are a given for the children of the Constant, well, except for Wendy, but I think this goes double for Walter. He's always shown as incredibly enthusiastic and optimistic, ready to face whatever's ahead with utmost certainty. But his time in the Scouts has made him value logic over his own feelings, so much so that he straight up no longer gets scared unless something actually hurts him. He's also pretty carefree, all things considered, but again, that could be attributed to being a child. Walter's morality is, well, I'm gonna put him with Weber. Why? Well, much like Weber, all we have for morals for him is the fact that he's just straight up a polite kid. Did he do a little breaking and entering into Woody's cabin? Sure, but I mean, it's not like Woody was around to care about him snooping through his stuff. And he really didn't have the time to do anything before setting off the trapped Voxala. Again, morally judging the children of the Constant is hard, so I would take all of their rankings with a grain of salt here. And of course, feel free to correct me in the comments down below if you feel I messed up, and while you're down there, you should like and subscribe too. Anyways, next up we have good old sweet Worley, the lovable chef. Worley's personality type is ISFJ. I think he's introverted merely because he's more intimate about everything he does, taking things more personally and listening more than he seems to input. At the same time, he's also a realistic person. He knows the situation he's currently in is dire, and like, this is kind of a sidestep from the conversation, but in Don't Starve Together, he just straight up refuses to eat random food, which like, yeah, I feel like I would be the same. How would I know that carrot isn't filled with shadow magic that will turn me into a 10-foot tall blob of goo or something? That said, he's also held high in regard by the other survivors, according to their quotes on his food, and by the fact that Wes's favorite food can literally only be made by Worley, suggesting that the two have potentially bonded over that. Yes, I know that crepes are French, but if that's why they're Wes's favorite food, then why can't he make them? Checkmate. As for morality, well, I think we can all agree that Worley is a very morally sound character. He left a promising career just to take care of his elderly mama, Angeline, who suffers from dementia. And he didn't just take care of her, he also cooked her absolute banger meals, like mussel bouillabaisse, that can be seen in his animated short. I think all parents want their children to end up like Worley. He really is super selfless, and it breaks my heart whenever he references his mama in game. Next up, we have Wormwood, the innocent plant baby who's unironically most likely the youngest character on this list, thanks to him being born in front of our very eyes within the Constant. Wormwood's personality type is ENFP. He really is just a big sweet plant guy. He wants everyone to be his friend, even if they don't exactly want to be his friend, sadly. A pure emotion-driven machine this one is. Or maybe he's driven by the moon. That's for a different video you should totally watch after this one. Either way, Wormwood is... God, I just feel so bad for this creature. He really deserves so much better. Thankfully, his friends in the Constant appreciate him, lore-wise. In-game Wormwoods are just turned into a lumber factory. As for morality, Wormwood's going right about here. Why? Well, despite there being very little Wormwood lore, being born on screen and all, Wormwood's interactions with all other life in the Constant is purely good. Whether it's due to his childlike naivety, or he's genuinely good-natured is up to debate, but I cannot possibly put Wormwood in the evil category. I could see the debate for him being morally gray because, lack of evidence, but hey, let my plant boy get this win. Next up, we have Wartox, the mischievous imp. Wartox's personality type is ENFP. He's incredibly expressive, though usually only being expressive via rhyming, which in itself is extroverted. He's also very abstract compared to the others, being unique in that he willingly stays within the Constant, able to leave whenever, but choosing to stay probably based on his feelings towards the other survivors. Or maybe he just likes it here better than the world of, say, Terraria, which is fair. Living in the world of Terraria would probably be less pleasant than the Constant. Everything may be out to get you over here, but over there, everything is out to get you. As for morality, well, I think Wartox is actually a morally good character. There's the obvious rebelling against his mentor Crampi, which was a very morally correct decision, but he also shows a huge amount of compassion towards his fellow survivors. And again, let me point out the fact that he can just leave whenever he feels like it. He's sticking around purely for something, and that something may very well be his new Constant family. Alright, moving on now, let's talk about Wirt, the Merm Child. Wirt's personality type is INFJ. Now, I'm gonna admit most of this is based on headcanon, because Wirt's dialogue isn't exactly that expressive of her personality, being mostly comprised of hip Merm slang, but I feel as if she would be introverted primarily because, well, the survivors, while being her new family, aren't her family, if that makes sense. She still most likely connects better with Merms than she does with the others. She obviously has huge goals for Mermkind as well. I also kind of think Wirt is a pretty judgmental character, with her biggest soft spot being for her mentor, Wickerbottom. This is her quote for if Wickerbottom is caught killing another player, and it's genuinely pretty heartbreaking. It does show that she cares about her though. As for her morality, well, the problem is not only is Wirt a child, but she's also like a whole different species. I know, I ranked Wartox's morality, but he's at least a mammal. Wirt's a fish. Look at this thing in the eyes. Do you think there's any thoughts going on behind those eyes? I'm going to have Wirt be the first unrankable character here. A, because she's a fish, and B, because it's more interesting than the actual answer of morally gray due to lack of determined lore. Yes, she's a Mermguard and canonically wages war on the pigs, but we don't know what side is right in the whole pig and Merm war. Rather, the war is probably just a simple animal instinct war of territorialness, even though both species have two entirely different habitats. Oh geez, wait. Clay, you guys should add some lore to the whole Merm and pig war because it's genuinely making no sense to me. How do we know about the ancients in depth, but not things we can actually see in game? Okay, I'm rambling. Anyways, moving on. To Wanda, the Chronomancer. Wanda's personality type is ESTJ. She's incredibly active about things that she understands, but ironically, she doesn't seem to show much motivation, merely understanding her situation. That being that she can just jump in between timelines at will. This enhanced knowledge also makes her a very logical person who isn't open to change because, well, she knows how everything's going to end anyway. Seriously, she's a bleak woman when you actually start looking into her personality and backstory. Speaking of her backstory, now it's time to talk about Wanda's morality. She's still so plagued in mystery, where did she get the timepieces? What connection do they have to the mysterious shadows? And who did she royally piss off? Well, it was probably the head honcho of the shadows, someone way above Charlie or Maxwell's pay grade. And here's the thing though, you can tell that Wanda is still trying to do the right thing. She'll attempt to warn the others of how certain events may end, but sometimes she leaves things vague, whether purposefully or because she doesn't want to jarble up the timeline because of, the whole time traveler's paradox. The one that makes it so if she fixes a problem by time traveling, she would no longer have a reason to travel back in time, thus changing nothing. Sorry if I just ruined time travel for you guys, it is a pretty bleak theory. Well, not a theory, it's a paradox, but whatever. I still think she's at least a slightly good character. Against all odds, she still tries to do what's right. Plus, she's actively fighting against the shadows, which due to their atrocities in the real world and within the Constant, that can be seen as a morally correct thing to do. Though she should probably be careful of how much she harnesses their power. We all know how that ended for one particular magician. Now we get to move on to my favorite segment, the single player characters. And wonky. Now, here's the thing. The single player characters all have straight up minimal lore, except for one of them. So practically this whole next segment is going to be full of headcanons. I'll try to make sure I explain everything in ways that make complete sense with the lore though. Like, I'm not just gonna say that Woodlegs is actually Maxwell's great times 32 older brother from the 15th century, and therefore is evil or something. No, this is all going to at least somewhat make sense. Starting with Walani, the chill surfer girl with a tragically dark secret. Walani's personality type is INFP. She's very low energy and contained, is unique in the sense that she believes that the world should work around her needs, aka she's lazy, does things when she feels like it, and is probably the most casual and chill character on this list. It's literally in her name. As for her morality, well, buckle in folks, because Walani is actually slightly evil. Let me explain. So I've made it clear in some of my earlier videos, like my timeline and crime videos, that Walani is actually a pirate. We know this by her examination quotes for both the Gunpowder Keg and Cutlass Supreme. Many people debate this by saying, oh, maybe she worked for the Navy. And here's my irrefutable proof that she did not. She's lazy. Military service, especially in the age when wars were actively being waged, was a very active thing. Pirates and bands of criminals in the 1700s were probably a little more lax on their hiring positions, I don't know what you'd call it, since they were more opportunist than anything. But, I believe she has since chosen to give up that life and live a more pacifist lifestyle. Yes, we're assuming she did some atrocities as a pirate in her previous life, but like I said, this is a single player character, we've gotta assume. Also, I don't think it was very common for women to be in the Navy in the 1700s. I wasn't born in the 1700s, I didn't exist in the 1700s, I didn't do anything in the 1700s, but that's what it seems like when I looked it up, so. Plus, come on, can you really see Walani as being a Navy girl? Enforcing rules? Things she clearly doesn't like? Yeah, I don't think so. Alright, how about we move on to the actual confirmed pirate, Woodlegs. Woodlegs' personality type is ESTJ. He's a pirate, and I felt that those descriptors would best fit a pirate. Yeah, that's about it. Gosh, I really do these single player characters an injustice. Clay, please, I beg you, we need single player character lore. We're starving out here. Moving on, let's talk about morality. Again, this is under the assumption that Woodlegs did the whole plundering thing in his days as a pirate, which he most likely did. That's what pirates were typically known for in the 1700s. I will say he's more evil than Walani though, simply because he's shown to embrace his ways as a pirate, unlike Walani who has thrown the past life away. Also, because we're talking about Woodlegs, I have to bring up the plot hole. That just makes him more evil for ruining the continuity. Next up, we have Wilbur, the Monkey King. So, yeah, this guy's literally just a monkey. How on earth do you expect me to rank either his personality or morality? Yeah, no, we're unfortunately going to have to skip poor old Wilbur because I can't pull something out of thin air for him. He's a monkey though, and that's cool enough. Moving on, we have Wilba, the heir to the capitalist utopia of Palace City. Wilba's personality type is ESTJ. Now again, most of this is based around personal headcanon, but I believe that Wilba, growing up within the advanced pig city of Hamlet, would have some level of formal education, and she seems very expressive compared to the pigs we know below the clouds. At the same time, she is known to be critical of things she's not aware of, and is very, what's the right word for this? I guess scheduled with how she approaches things. At least according to her quotes, which are mostly broken English anyway, so they are difficult to interpret. Wilba fittingly gets to go with Wirt on the morality scale. I like to think that prior to the player gaining control of her, Wilba was straight up just a normal kid, but we have almost no way of knowing what shenanigans she got up to in her previous life. Well, previous to player control, that is. So yeah, next up we have Wheeler, the adventurous type. Wheeler's personality type is ENTP. She's, well, an adventurer, and these traits best describe someone as lively and vibrant as herself. She has a tendency to be positive about most of the things she talks about in-game, and she appears to be very open to changes happening around her. As for morality, Well, not much is known about Mayabelle Dorothy Wheeler, except that we know her full government name for some reason, but she is a cat person, and I think that alone lets me know that she's a good person. No, I'm not biased because I myself have a cat. Leave me alone. Next person. Moving on to the one that you have probably been waiting for. The Wagstaff Granny Transmission Robert Don't Starve himself, the grand evil scientist that Wilson would probably be if he was actually competent. Wagstaff's personality type is INTP. He doesn't appear to be very sociable, at least not when we're observing him. He's always off on his own, lonesome, working on some new world-ending gadget. He has huge plans for the Constant, had huge plans for the Constant. We still don't know what happened to him when he got yoinked. And finally, he's very spontaneous. I mean, one second he's simply exploring this new world he discovered via a strange camera, and the next he's quite literally siphoning its energy for God knows what. Yeah, this man's too wild. Scary wild. Let's talk about morality. Believe it or not, I don't think Wagstaff is more evil than Maxwell. Okay, hear me out. Wagstaff has done almost everything he has out of his love for science. Sure, he's directly responsible for not helping someone out of the rubble, but who put that person in there? Maxwell did. Sure, he's a bit of a thief and a con man, and yes, he did treat our favorite soulless automaton poorly, but he didn't detonate a weapon of mass destruction in San Francisco, or go off to kidnap countless people, kids included. Yes, it's true Wagstaff hasn't done a lot of good. Matter of fact, I don't think he's done any good, but at least with what we're aware of, we can't really say he's morally worse than Maxwell. It's a stretch and a half too. The survivors should genuinely all hate Maxwell for what he's done. Well, except Willow and Wigfred, those two are definitely far better off being here anyway. Finally, to finish us off strong, we have Wonky. Yeah, I'm not sure what you expected. Wonky simply takes the personality type and morality of whatever character you were playing upon transformation. It's really not that deep, as long as there's no long-term psychological effects of wonkification, but we'll never know. And there you have it. Oh my goodness, was this video long and needlessly complex. If you somehow stuck through all of that, thank you so much. You deserve a gold star or something. Now you can tell all your friends you know the personality types and morality of all the funny fictional characters in the Don't Starve-averse. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down your own opinions on my rankings. Did you agree with them or disagree? Seriously, let me know. I enjoy knowing things. Anyways, I'm off to go eat a granola bar or something. See ya, everyone.